My name is Jake, and I'm a survivor of something terrible. Something that happened in the woods, in the tunnels, in the dark. Something that changed me forever. It all started when I was 14, and my parents sent me to a boarding school in Vermont. They said it was for my own good, that I needed some discipline and structure in my life. They didn't care that I had friends and hobbies and dreams back home in New York. They just wanted me out of their way. The boarding school was an old and creepy place, with a history of violence and tragedy. It used to be a reform school for troubled boys, and there were rumors of abuse, torture, and even murder. The school was surrounded by thick woods, and underneath it, there was a network of tunnels that the boys had dug over the years to escape or hide from the authorities. I hated it there. I hated the strict rules, the boring classes, the mean teachers, and the cruel bullies. I hated the cold and the isolation and the silence. The only thing that kept me sane was my friendship with Sam and Leo, two other misfits who shared my dorm room. We stuck together, and we tried to make the best of our situation. One day, we decided to explore the tunnels. We had heard stories about them, but we had never seen them for ourselves. We were curious and bored, and we wanted to have some fun. We waited until after lights out, and then we sneaked out of our room. We had a flashlight, a map, and a backpack with some snacks and drinks. We were ready for an adventure. We found an entrance to the tunnels under one of the floorboards in the hallway. It was a small hole, barely big enough for us to crawl through. We took turns going in, and then we followed the tunnel as it twisted and turned underground. It was dark and damp and dusty, and we could hear the sound of our own breathing echoing in the walls. We came across a fork in the tunnel, and we chose to go left. We thought it would lead us to another dorm, or maybe to the cafeteria or the gym. We were wrong. It led us to something much worse. We reached a dead end, where the tunnel was blocked by a wall of concrete. There was a sign on the wall that said, "Danger, high voltage." We realized that we had stumbled upon an old power line that ran under the school. We wondered how many boys had tried to dig through it and got electrocuted. We felt a chill run down our spines. We decided to turn back, but before we could, we heard a loud bang. It sounded like an explosion, and it came from the direction we had come from. We felt the ground shake, and we saw dust and debris falling from the ceiling. We panicked, and we ran towards the wall, hoping to find a way out. We didn't find one. Instead, we found a hole that had been blasted open by the explosion, revealing another tunnel behind the wall, a tunnel that we had never seen before, a tunnel that looked older and darker and deeper than the ones we had been in. We had no choice. We had to go in. We hoped that it would lead us to the surface, or at least to another exit. We hoped that we would be safe. We were wrong. We were not safe. We were in danger. We were in hell. The tunnel was different from the others. It was narrower and steeper and rougher. It had no signs or markings or directions. It seemed to go on forever, and we had no idea where we were going. We felt like we were descending into the earth, into the unknown. We walked for what seemed like hours until we came to a large chamber. It was the biggest room we had ever seen in the tunnels. It had a high ceiling and a wide floor and a huge fireplace in the center. It looked like a living room, but a twisted and sinister one. There were couches and chairs and tables, but they were all covered in blood and bones and fur. There were paintings and sculptures and books, but they were all torn and burned and defaced. There were candles and lanterns and torches, but they all flickered with a sickly green light. We were horrified by what we saw. We wondered who had lived here and what had happened to them. We wondered if they were still here, and if they would find us. We wondered if we would ever get out. We didn't have time to wonder for long. We heard a growl, a low and deep and angry growl, a growl that came from behind us. We turned around and we saw it. It was a wolf, a huge and black and monstrous wolf, a wolf that had red eyes and sharp teeth and long claws, a wolf that looked at us with hunger and hatred. We screamed and we ran. We ran towards the fireplace, hoping to find a way out. We didn't find one. Instead, we found a fog, a black and thick and cold fog, a fog that came from the fireplace and filled the room, a fog that surrounded us and trapped us and choked us. We felt something in the fog, something that touched us and grabbed us and pulled us, something that was not the wolf but something worse, something that was not alive but something evil, something that wanted us and needed us and used us. We don't remember what happened next. We don't remember how long we were in the fog, or what it did to us, or how we got out. We don't remember anything except the pain and the fear and the darkness. We woke up on the side of the road, near the entrance to the trail. We were covered in dirt and blood and bruises. We had no idea how we got there, or what day it was, or where our backpack and flashlight and map were. We had no idea what had happened to us, or why we were still alive. We were found by a passing car and taken to a hospital. We were treated for our injuries and questioned by the police. We told them what we could, but it wasn't much. We told them about the school and the tunnels and the wolf and the fog. We told them the truth, but they didn't believe us. They thought we were lying or crazy or both. They let us go, but they kept an eye on us. On one of those wet Sundays, I watched the lightning from my narrow cabin and drank my ginger tea. A few hours passed since I flew to Seattle from Miami. I always aspired to work as a doctor in a place that inspired me, so I joined a research team that studied the effects of the pandemic. I never saw a lightning as bright as that in my entire life. I am a doctor in a secluded part of the US, so rain never ceases completely during fall in this town. Because of the weather, only a few people came to the lab. I decided to chill in the room allotted to me and read the books I ordered a day ago. Just as I engaged in reading the novel, someone pounded the door. It was my assistant, Maya. She came with me to help me educate the locals about vaccines. She said she loved the greenery and the freshness of Seattle, and she enjoyed the adventure. She grew up in a forest, so she liked the naturalness of it. She informed me of a woman on the phone who needed emergency help. I picked up the phone in the other room. The woman said her daughter had a bike accident, and the bike's chain tore up her arm. She had several lacerations and bled like a fountain. She said she was in the deserted town west, but before I could ask her number, the phone disconnected. I evaluated her situation to be critical. She could expire on the way if I didn't treat her. I snatched my coat on the table and got ready. Maya collected whatever tools he could and put them in the Jeep. I managed to get in before getting drenched. She turned on the radio and we listened to some music. As she started the Jeep, she asked me a vital question. "Where to, Doc?" "To the town 10 miles west." She let out a loud groan, and I understood why. "What are they doing in that damned place?" "I have no clue. If we're late, we'll never find out." She drove the Jeep, and the reality of the situation hit me for a moment. Were they daring explorers who sneaked into an empty place for thrill? Did someone get injured in a robbery and the robber ran away? Are we heading to our end? I wanted to drink to calm my nerves down, but I forgot them in the rush. I played with my flask to distract myself, but my mind focused on the girl, covered in a scarlet cloth. I gave up and stared at the black clouds above me. It seemed like forever before the Jeep stopped. I couldn't see anything from the windows, but I decided to get out and check where they could be. Maya stopped me, and the door was jammed anyway. "Where are you going?" "You'll get sick if you go out, Doc. Let's look for them in the Jeep." We drove around in the streets, and I stuck my head out of the window to find them, but we couldn't see any traces of them. I couldn't sit in my cozy seat anymore, and I kicked the door open and ran to the closest building I saw. I shouted for them, but I couldn't find anyone in that rundown store. I saw Maya doing the same thing. We broke into several houses to find no one. The damp air suffocated my lungs, and my hands shivered. Our run turned to a walk. My feet felt like stone. We searched for them, in vain. After 5 minutes, I heard a scream from the opposite block and saw the silhouette of the woman waving her arms. I yelled at Maya to bring the Jeep there and jumped in. The radio warmed my blue hands as the Jeep struggled to go forward. We got close enough for me to notice a pool of blood next to the building. The Jeep hit some trash, but we got it to safety, and I dashed into the abandoned building. A trail of blood led me to where they were. This was a hotel with towels, soap, and shampoo everywhere. If I fell to the ground, no doubt I'd get a rash from these things. I jumped like a deer and climbed to the 4th floor. The woman greeted me at the end of the stair. We hurried to the girl, and I examined her while asking what happened to the crying mother. "We've been looking for shelter around here," but a bike appeared out of nowhere, hit her, and drove away. Maya arrived and handed me alcohol to clean my hands. I got a pair of sterile gloves and checked the arm of the girl. It was beyond recovery. I could see the severed veins from the wound, and the abdomen seemed to be in a terrible shape. The moment I touched her, she jerked on the bed and screamed. Her breath grew weak, so Maya gave her an oxygen mask. I decided to bandage the abdomen and amputate the arm. It was hopeless. I had neither the experience nor the equipment to fix these horrific injuries back to their shape. The mother resisted and even tried to get between me and the girl. But as I explained the situation, she finally agreed. She had a lovely white dress with a bow in her hair. I guessed her to be in middle school, maybe in 6th grade. Her lavender perfume, mixed with the alcohol, awakened a terrible memory in my mind. This was too familiar to it. I checked her ears, and to my horror, they were pierced. "No," I whispered. I took off my gloves and moved her blonde hair aside to take a clear look at her face. My brain couldn't process what I saw in front of me. The gloves dropped from my hand as I stepped back. "This is not real," I told myself. I slapped my face. but she confirmed my futile attempt to detach myself from this place. My niece also had a white dress and pierced her ears on her birthday. She loved lavender and wanted to smell like them. On her 12th birthday, a stray bullet hit her and killed her. The only thing left of her was the lavender perfume mixed with the bitter blood smell. My brain went through the stages of grief within seconds, only to bring me back at the worst moment. The girl got up despite her dreadful condition and picked up the knife next to her. She scanned the room, but fixed her eyes on me, her face twisted with hate, and pointed at me with the knife. Everyone in the room froze for a moment. Maya glanced at me, and the mother seemed to be in shock. I threw everything in my mind away and realized the danger of the situation. I had no idea how this happened, but I didn't want to die in this forsaken place. I thought a ghost somehow possessed her body, but it was a guess to make sense of it. The mother snapped out of it and ran to her daughter. She hugged her as she sobbed. Her happiness didn't last. The girl stabbed her mother in the chest, and blood spurted out of her chest. She clung to the child, and they both fell to the ground. Maya fled the moment that happened. In my panicked state, I jumped out of the window and landed on the roof of the hotel. The adrenaline gave me enough strength to ignore my broken ribs and get into the Jeep so we could get out alive. I slipped on the wet ground again and finally got into the Jeep. I had no intention of leaving Maya here, so I waited for her in the passenger seat. She showed up unharmed, and I opened the door for her. She didn't stop the Jeep in case it drowned, so we had no trouble leaving the district. I looked behind one last time and saw the girl waving her hand. We finally calmed down and talked about it. Why did my niece stab her? I have no clue. Your niece? That was my cousin. We stared at each other. Now we got even more puzzled about the whole ordeal. I assumed the town had been haunted, and we almost became the next victims of it. I reported everything that happened to the police when we got to the lab. Life on this lane was always peaceful and serene. My name is Emma, and I like the cozy and comfortable life in a small town. I work as a graphic designer, so I can work from home and have flexible hours. I love gardening, reading, and baking in my spare time. My family, however, is very different. They love the fast-paced, busy, and adventurous life. I don't know how they can handle it, but they don't know me either. That's why I moved here and adopted a bird, to have some fun and joy. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. Miss Tweety was adorable, almost human-like in personality. She knew how to sing beautifully, mimic words, and even play games. As I said, small town life. She was my companion, especially on rainy spring days when I sat on the couch, listening to the raindrops on the window with her. But then, things started to change. A new family moved into the house next to mine. The Johnsons. They were normal. Too normal. That's what made me nervous. I saw them arrive in their SUV. A father, a mother, a son, and a daughter, all flawless. The father in a casual shirt and jeans, the mother with a cheerful smile, wearing a sundress and a hat, the son with his skateboard, a cap from some rock band, and the daughter in her cheerleader outfit. They looked like a typical family. The next days were as usual, with Miss Tweety singing in her cage and me working on my designs. But then, I started to notice some changes. Miss Tweety became more quiet, timid. She used to greet me with a cheerful hello when I came home, but now she seemed to ignore me. Not just me. She stopped singing as often. I even had to buy a new toy, since she seemed bored with the old one. At first, I thought it was some minor incident, or maybe the presence of the new neighbors. Perhaps a mood swing. Speaking of the Johnsons, well, I'm not one to meddle or anything, but it was hard to overlook. They hardly ever opened the door, always keeping the lights off. At night, sometimes, I heard thumps coming from their house, as if they were moving furniture. The final straw of weirdness was when I saw Mrs. Johnson standing in the front yard, alone, on a foggy night. She was facing away from me, but her stiff posture and the way she stayed still made me shiver. It seemed like she was listening intently to the silence, unnerving. The next day, Miss Tweety was gone. I was frantic because although, as I said, she liked to stay in her cage, she always stayed within my house, inside the walls, and she always came back to her perch to sleep by my side. I decided to look for her around the town, calling her name in vain. I asked the neighbors, except the Johnsons, but no one had seen anything. I was truly desperate. I rang the bell of the house next to mine, hoping to find some clue in the last place I wanted to be. Mrs. Johnson answered with her usual smile, hair neatly braided, and earrings dangling. When I asked if they had seen my bird, she paused for a moment before answering, "Oh, Miss Tweety, right? I'm sorry. I don't think I've seen her around here, but we'll keep an eye out, okay? I'm sure she'll show up." Her response was polite, but there was something off. She finished speaking and stood there, still, inert, looking at me, a strange feeling that something was wrong. Still, I thanked her and stepped back. Despite Mrs. Johnson's seemingly comforting words, a sense of dread filled me. Her smile seemed fake, and her eyes shifted around, making me uneasy. I might be becoming paranoid, but something about that encounter wasn't right. I decided to follow my gut, and that evening, when the lane was empty and the Johnsons were out, I decided to investigate. I saw their SUV turning the corner at the end of the lane, all 4 of them inside. Silence reigned in the house. I carefully entered their front yard, feeling guilty for doing so, but the worry for Miss Tweedy and the thought of what might be happening to her overcame my hesitation. The house was as spotless inside as it was outside, with furniture and details that seemed to have come out of a home improvement catalog. It was such an artificial perfection that I felt like I was in a reality show. As I searched through the rooms of the house, however, the feeling of being watched haunted me. Every noise made me shudder. Every shadow made me jump. I looked through the living room, kitchen, even dared to enter the bedrooms, where I was shocked to see what Mr. and Mrs. Johnson had hidden. Numerous family photos. I almost slammed the door in horror when I saw that the eyes of all of them were directed towards the door. I started to notice something odd about them. In all of them, the people were the same, but the backgrounds weren't. Wow, you might be thinking, what's so odd about that? Wouldn't it be strange to have thousands of photos with the same background? And you would be right. But this case was exceptional. The photos seemed very, very old. There were things from the 90s, 80s, 70s. I even found a black and white photo from that time before the photos, and in all of them, they were the same, as if they didn't age. It was when a noise snapped me out of this trance. A muffled, low, but unmistakable sound. A chirp. I was tense, but also relieved to hear the chirp. It was proof that Miss Tweedy was somewhere around. I followed the sound, and it led me to a terrifying place. One that I had been deliberately avoiding. The attic. The chirps grew louder as my steps approached. I don't know how many of you have birds, but they chirp differently depending on the situation. And my feathered friend was chirping in fear. It was urgent. I opened the squeaky door, greeted by a blast of cold, dry air. A strong smell of dust. The stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed up, my rapid breath echoing in the emptiness. I followed the chirp, now clearer. I assumed she was curled up in a corner, scared, so I began to head towards the back of the room. But then, my eyes started to adjust, slowly, to the darkness. I stopped walking. My heart raced. I had to appear calm, but now, panic had taken over my mind. My chest began to heave as I breathed in more and more of that suffocating air. I saw, with the little light I had, a figure, strange, twisted, but much bigger than a bird. It had something resembling a head, which began to turn towards me. I couldn't see its eyes, but I felt they were on me. I saw it move, opening its mouth, and then a chirp sound echoed from its throat. This time I could hear it clearly, and it was much deeper, distorted. I'll be back, Miss Tweety, I stammered as I backed away, still facing the thing. But when I saw it move, I ran without even looking back, slamming the attic door and jumping out of the front window of the house as fast as I could. However, my great panic came now. As I jumped over the Johnson's fence and finally entered my front yard, I saw a furry, small, curious figure on the porch steps. It was Buster, wagging his fluffy tail. I ran to the porch, to where my dog was. He snuggled against my hand, barking. "Where have you been, buddy?" My phone vibrated. It was a message from the lady from the next road. Nancy. "Hey, dear. Your dog showed up here this afternoon, but I couldn't reach you. I gave him food and helped him over the fence. I saw the lights turning on. Are you home? Is he okay?" "Yeah, Mrs. Nancy, thank you so much." I closed the phone. Now me and Buster are here, on the porch. The moon has risen, and now we only have the faint light of the stars. It's one of those chilly nights, but we're not looking up at the sky, but across. The Johnsons' van is parked in front of the house. They've been there for almost an hour now, sitting motionless like dull, except for Mrs. Johnson, who is now staring directly at us. I feel a cold sweat on my forehead, and my heart beats faster. I don't know what to do. Should I call the police? Should I confront them? Should I run away? I don't have any proof of what I saw in their attic, and I don't think anyone would believe me, but I can't just ignore it either. There's something wrong with them, something unnatural, and they know that I know. I grab Buster and go inside, locking the door behind me. I turn on the lights and the TV, hoping to drown out the silence and the fear. I try to calm myself down, telling myself that it's all in my head, that I'm just imagining things, but I can't shake off the feeling that they're watching me. waiting for something. I check my phone again, hoping to see a message from someone, anyone, but there's nothing. I feel isolated, alone, trapped. I wonder if my family would miss me if I disappeared. I wonder if anyone would care. I hear a knock on the door. I jump, startled. I look through the peephole, and I see Mrs. Johnson, smiling. She's holding a plate of cookies, and she says in a sweet voice, "Hello, Emma. I'm sorry to bother you, but I baked some cookies and I thought you might like some. Can I come in?" I feel a surge of panic, and I back away from the door. I don't answer, hoping she'll go away, but she doesn't. She knocks again, louder, more insistently. "Emma, are you there? I just want to talk to you. Please, open the door." I shake my head, clutching Buster. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to see her. I don't want to know what she is. She knocks again, harder, making the door rattle. She raises her voice, sounding angry. "Emma, open the door right now. Don't make me do this." I hear a loud bang, and I see the door crack. She's trying to break in. She's trying to get me. I scream, and I run to the back door, hoping to escape. But as I reach the door, I see Mr. Johnson holding a baseball bat. He's blocking the way, and he says in a menacing voice, "Going somewhere, Emma?" I freeze, terrified. I'm trapped. They're here. They're coming for me. I look around, desperately, looking for a way out. I see a window, and I run towards it, hoping to break it and jump out. But as I reach the window, I see the son and the daughter holding knives. They are smiling, and they say in unison, "Hello, Emma. We want to play with you." I scream again, and I turn around, looking for another exit, but there's none. They're everywhere. They're closing in. They're going to get me. I hug Buster, and I cry. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they are. I hear them say in a creepy chorus, "We are the Johnsons. We are a family, and we want you to be part of our family. Forever." I close my eyes, and I wait for the end.